This is Alternative Political Analysis, and this video will be the case for the Boerestaat. And the Boerestaat is Afrikaans for a Boer state. And if we go back in history to when Johan van Riebeeck brought the burghers to Cape Town on the 6th of April 1652. So that means the burghers and their descendants have been in South Africa from the mid 17th century onwards. And if we go forward in history a bit to France annexing the Netherlands in 1795. Now this prompted action from the British Empire, as the Netherlands is where the Dutch East India Company were based, and Britain, because of its imperial ambitions, did not want France reaching India via the sea route, and this led to the British annexing the Cape in 1795. And this affected the burghers in an adverse way. Their religion, Calvinism, was frowned upon by the Anglican imperial establishment of the British Empire. It also had a detrimental cultural effect, as the annexation of the Cape led to the Anglicisation of Afrikaner culture. And in addition, the Boers did not like the warmongering attitudes of the British, and this led to the Great Trek, which started in January of 1832, so just before the mid 19th century. And an important point of note is this was before the British had abolished slavery on the Cape, and that is important, as the British narrative and myth is that the Boers left the Cape because they did not like the British abolition of slavery, when historical record shows that the Great Trek had already begun at that point. And the Great Trek led to the Boers establishing republics, and these republics were in uninhabited parts of territory that was considered Lesotho and part of the Bapedi Kingdom in the north. However, Boers moved into uninhabited territory, and they established the Orange Free State in proximity to Lesotho, and proximal to KwaZulu, Swaziland, Bapedi, Botswana, and Matabeleland. The Boers established the Transvaal, or what would later become known as the South African Republic. And it should be noted that the Orange Free State became the most functional administration in all of Africa, and the Transvaal would become the richest country in the world after gold and diamonds were found there in Johannesburg before the Second Boer War. And this brings us on to the subjects of the Boer Wars, and those previous facts can be found in Herman Guillaume's The Afrikaner's Biography of a People, and it's a book that I would highly recommend. And this brings us on to the subject of the First Boer War, and the British Empire annexed the Transvaal in 1877, so we're in the latter half of the 19th century, and they used the Transvaal as a base for the Anglo-Zulu War between the British Empire and KwaZulu. And this led to Boers from the Transvaal and the Orange Free State fighting back and winning in a war between 1880 and 1881. And obviously their victory was much more short-lived than they would have liked, as there was the Jameson Raid in 1895, which was an act of aggression by the British Empire when they carried out military raids on the Orange Free State and the Transvaal, and this of course culminated in a British war of aggression beginning in 1899 and lasting until 1902. So at the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century. And while the Boer did secure notable victories at Spioenkamp and Magersfontein, it wasn't enough to withstand the total war and quite blatantly total disregard for human rights by the British Empire. It is well known that the British had a scorched earth policy, a policy which the same personnel in the military would utilise in Ireland and Palestine. But to summarise, the British Empire committed genocide against the Boers and the Bantu in Orange Free State and the Transvaal. There's no two ways about it. What happened in the Second Boer War was genocide, and you can see the maps here. On the left is the state of play prior to the First Boer War. You can see that the British have the Cape Colony, they have Greek Wayland East, which is a small bit of territory under Lesotho there, as you can see. They also have Greek Wayland West under Botswana there, as you can see. And then you can see the Orange Free State and the Transvaal next to state of play in the period prior to the Second Boer War. As you can see, the Germans still have Namibia, the Portuguese still have Mozambique, Swaziland still independent, but if you look at the rest of it, outside the Boer republics of the Transvaal and the Orange Free State, there's Zimbabwe there in British Rhodesia, as you can see, and if you go southwest, just to the left there, you can see Botswana is occupied by the British, and then you go further south and the Cape Colony surrounds the Orange Free State. Also, you can see Lesotho is under the control of the British Empire, as is Natal and KwaZulu, and as I said, Swaziland's independent, but apart from Swaziland and Portuguese Mozambique, the Boers are totally surrounded by the British, and if you compare the situations, as you can see in the first Boer War, Zimbabwe is not under the control of the British at that point, whereas you look at the second Boer War, you can see it marked clearly, Rhodesia, with the Union flag above it, and you can also see the Union flag on KwaZulu, whereas if you look at KwaZulu in the first Boer War map, it's not in the British blue like the rest of the map southwest of it, Boerestaat Free State, and you can see that there is a major difference, and you could argue that were it not for British annexation, the Transvaal and Orange Free State would be self-governing and functional republics in Africa. And that will conclude this video, and leave your comments below and check out the other videos on this